Hey bro, what's up? So, let's start with the economy because that one's gonna sting some people. The iodine pills that used to be a cheap, almost throwaway item at the dueling ring vendor have had their price multiplied. From 80 up to 800 solari, and the vendor no longer stocks them infinitely. It's a weekly limit now, 10 pills per week. For players who were relying on buying stacks to power through certain survival needs or mission loops, this pushes you to either craft more yourself or ration what you have. This is a pretty blunt instrument from the developer to address farming or trivialization of risk. So plan ahead if you had a routine built around those pills. Combat received some interesting and somewhat targeted adjustments. Dungeon bosses will no longer be susceptible to slowing effects from ranged and melee hits. That means if you've been running large groups where everyone piles on slow procs to stomp big enemies, it won't be as reliable anymore. That change pairs with a sizable increase in energy weapon damage mitigation for overmapped dungeons, up from 50% to 72.5%, which effectively tanks energy weapon output against these tougher encounters. It's clear the intent is to make caster-ish or energy-heavy builds think twice about face rolling through content and to encourage more deliberate engagements, especially in higher-tier dungeons. Additionally, there's a tweak to the Wreck of Tyke encounter where a portion of rapier-wielding NPCs were swapped out for sword users to ease the difficulty curve a bit. So you'll notice fights feel less about spamming slows and energy damage and more about positioning, survivability, and timing. Vehicles got some love too, particularly around that weird edge case where players' ornithopters would vanish from the vehicle backup tool under specific travel sequences. The bug seemed to happen if you mounted and dismounted a bike during the Smuggler's Run mission and then traveled to the Neo-Carthic dueling ring and Harco prior to a hotfix. That should be resolved now, which means fewer frantic support tickets about where did my bird go, and fewer players losing a key part of their base of operations mobility. There were also fixes around crashes tied to ornithopter escape scenes from Old Carthage, which should reduce those hard crashes during the escape sequences. On the exploration and UI side, one quality of life tweak you'll appreciate is the dungeon entrance pop-up now showing recommended item tier and augment grade for the difficulty level you're about to enter. That little nudge makes it easier to judge whether you and your team are ready for what's inside without having to guess from vague stat lines. They also added an option to hide messages from specific text channels in the HUD, which is surprisingly helpful if you've got spammy channels or a group that tends to clog the screen during intense fights. Plus, there's clearer messaging around what's needed to access lands route and specializations, so new players aren't left wondering why they can't unlock content they thought they qualified for. The patch packs a lot of fixes too, a whole list of stability improvements and bug squashes. Server and client stability were improved, multiple character transfer edge cases that could fail with an M72 error were resolved. And there were fixes for scenarios that could block progression, including Chapter 2 mission blockers and incorrect password prompts for Haga Basin. They also restored missing items that had disappeared, like certain stillsuit garments, and fixed crafted augmentations so they can now be recycled to return some of the crafting cost, which is a welcome reclaim mechanic for people who tinker a lot. A few very specific combat physics bugs tied to the magnetic attractor were corrected. Things like grenades colliding weirdly, mines attaching incorrectly, or aim lock failing with rocket launchers were addressed, so those wonky encounter moments should happen less. There are also some targeted world fixes that will matter if you like consistency in the journey experience. Missing collisions in various testing stations were patched to stop people taking shortcuts to bosses. A pentashield door in the starting area of the ruins of Old Carthage was replaced with a wall during a particular journey to avoid confusion, and mission flow issues, like a mission that wouldn't complete, like a mission that went if a boss died before you collected items, were fixed. These all add up to fewer "that's a bug, not me" moments. Overall, what you're seeing is a blend of balance changes aimed at reintroducing some challenge to encounters, an economy tweak that tightens certain consumable loops, and a big set of fixes meant to stop loss of progress, restore vanished items, and stabilize the experience. If your playstyle relied on buying iodine pills in bulk or stacking slows and energy shots on bosses, you'll need to adapt. If you were the one getting thrown into crashes or locked out of missions by edge case bugs, this should be a breath of fresh air. The full patch notes are out there if you want to go line by line through everything, but from a practical perspective, expect bosses to be less trivialized, vendor economics to be meaner, and a smoother time getting from point A to point B without losing vehicles or progress.